In the late 1990s, dozens of Mexico's most elite soldiers, trained by the US and Israel in counter-terror operations, vanished from their posts. They didn't go rogue. They joined the Gulf Cartel and formed an organization so disciplined and brutal, it would quickly reach infamy as Mexico's most dangerous criminal syndicate. What could drive professional warriors to abandon their country and become the architects of mass terror? The answer lies in the origins of the group that changed organized crime forever. The men who disappeared from Mexico's barracks in the late 1990s came from the country's most elite fighting force, the Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales, known as GAFE. These soldiers were not just well-trained, they had studied counterinsurgency, intelligence gathering, and advanced combat under US and Israeli instructors. Their curriculum included urban warfare, surveillance, and psychological operations, skills designed for the toughest threats to the state. Yet over 30 of these operatives, and some sources say as many as 34, abandoned their posts in a wave of desertions that left military officials scrambling for answers. At the core was a tight-knit unit known as the Group of 14, led by Lieutenant Arturo Guzman de Sena. Their expertise gave them value far beyond the battlefield. In the criminal underworld, these tactics meant the difference between chaos and control. The same skills meant to defend a nation would soon be turned to serve a very different master. The Gulf Cartel's offer was impossible to ignore. For Lieutenant Arturo Guzman de Sena and his men, the promise was simple: monthly earnings that dwarfed a year's army pay. While military salaries barely covered basic needs, the cartel's cash opened doors to a different world, one where loyalty was traded for security and expertise. De Sena, trusted by both his fellow soldiers and cartel boss Ociel Cardenas Guillen, became the architect of this exodus. He convinced more than 30 elite operatives to abandon their posts, using the cartel's money as leverage. But the price of leadership in this world was steep. In November 2002, De Sena was gunned down by Mexican authorities in a Matamoros restaurant, ending his reign as the original recruiter. His death left a power vacuum at the top of Los Zetas, forcing the group to reorganize and look for new leadership as they expanded their reach beyond simple enforcement. Los Zetas did not simply import military discipline. They built a command system that rivaled state security forces. Each member received a numbered designation, with leaders like Z3, Heriberto Lascano, overseeing a hierarchy that mirrored special forces units. Orders moved through clear chains of command, and discipline was enforced with military precision. This structure gave Los Zetas the ability to coordinate complex operations across multiple cities, something unheard of among rival cartels at the time. Their edge extended far beyond tactics. Los Zetas constructed their own encrypted radio networks, independent of commercial cell towers and government lines. Using modified Motorola repeaters and broadband terminals, their technicians established secure channels that allowed commanders to relay instructions in real time. This allowed commanders to coordinate simultaneous attacks and order rapid retreats. In Tamaulipas and neighboring states, these networks operated on frequencies chosen for their reach and reliability, sometimes hopping channels to avoid interception. By late 2011, cartel communications experts could direct messages to specific units while keeping others in the dark, a level of control that outmatched many police agencies. Their technical sophistication did not stop at radios. Los Zetas maintained detailed databases of targets and rivals, gathering intelligence through surveillance and informants. Their communications teams included specialists, sometimes recruited, and sometimes coerced, who were tasked with hacking into police and military transmissions. In several documented cases, authorities discovered Los Zetas intercepting official communications, giving the cartel advance warning of raids and patrols. With command centers equipped with high-end computers and scanning equipment, Los Zetas ran operations with a clarity and speed that left their enemies guessing. The result was not just a criminal gang, but a paramilitary force with its own secure lines, real-time intelligence, and the ability to adapt on the fly. This technological advantage became the foundation for their explosive growth in the years that followed. Under Heriberto Lascano's leadership, Los Zetas set out to build something no other cartel in Mexico could match: a standing army with the discipline and scale of a military force. Recruitment moved far beyond the original GAFE core. Active duty soldiers, federal and state police, and even correctional officers were quietly approached with offers of steady pay and the promise of power. The most ambitious move came in 2004, when Lascano reached across the southern border to Guatemala. There, he recruited members of the Cartels, Guatemala's legendary special forces, known for their brutal training and counterinsurgency experience. At least 30 Cartels joined, bringing new expertise in jungle warfare, interrogation, and survival tactics. Their arrival signaled that Los Zetas were no longer just a Mexican phenomenon. They had become a multinational criminal army. The organization's growth was not left to chance. Los Zetas established clandestine training camps in Tamaulipas and other northern states, modeling them after GAFE facilities. Recruits learned small unit tactics, weapons handling, and urban combat. Instructors drilled them in surveillance, counter-surveillance, and the use of intelligence databases. Every new member was cataloged. Los Zetas kept detailed records on their own operatives, on rivals, and on targets throughout their territories. These intelligence databases, updated by informants and communication specialists, became a force multiplier, allowing commanders to assign missions with precision and track threats in real time. By the mid-2000s, estimates suggest Los Zetas had grown to thousands of operatives, with some sources putting the number above 10,000. This was not just a cartel, it was a private army with its own recruitment pipeline, training infrastructure, and intelligence apparatus. The scale and professionalism of this force meant Los Zetas could project power across Mexico, challenge rival cartels, and prepare for the day when they would no longer answer to anyone else. In February 2010, Los Zetas severed ties with the Gulf Cartel, stepping out from the role of hired guns to become an independent criminal powerhouse. They no longer needed to share profits or answer to external bosses. Their control over trafficking routes, logistics, and armed personnel gave them leverage that few organizations in Mexico could match. With this autonomy, Los Zetas shifted focus from drug smuggling alone to a diversified criminal portfolio. Fuel theft, known locally as huachicol, became a major revenue stream. Teams tapped into government pipelines, siphoning thousands of barrels of gasoline and diesel to sell on the black market. This was organized theft on a national scale, draining millions from state oil company Pemex and flooding entire regions with stolen fuel. Extortion rackets targeted businesses both large and small, from local shops to multinational corporations. Kidnapping for ransom became systematic, with specialized units handling abductions and negotiations. Human smuggling routes through Tamaulipas and Coahuila fell under Zeta control, turning migration into another source of profit. Each new venture relied on the same command structure and intelligence networks built during their years as cartel enforcers. Financial independence gave Los Zetas the resources to arm their operatives, pay informants, and finance operations that would soon redefine the meaning of terror in Mexico. In August 2010, a group of 72 migrants, men and women from Central and South America, were found murdered on a ranch near San Fernando, Tamaulipas. They had been pulled from buses by Los Zetas gunmen, interrogated, and executed when they could not pay ransom or refused to work for the cartel. The youngest victim was just 15 years old. Forensic teams, guided by a single survivor who escaped with a bullet wound, uncovered the bodies in a single grave. Official records from the Tamaulipas state prosecutor document the event in chilling detail. The victims had no connection to organized crime. Their only crime was trying to cross Mexico in search of a better life. Less than a year later, the pattern repeated. In 2011, authorities discovered mass graves containing the remains of 193 bus passengers, again in San Fernando. Los Zetas operatives had intercepted entire buses, removing passengers at gunpoint and killing them in batches. The numbers were so overwhelming that local morgues could not keep up. Federal investigators, international human rights groups, and journalists pieced together the sequence from court files and survivor testimony. Los Zetas left narco messages at massacre sites, warning rivals and authorities alike. These banners, scrawled with threats or justifications, were designed to spread terror far beyond the immediate victims. The message was clear. Nobody was outside their reach. These massacres did not target enemies, but ordinary people. The violence was calculated, public, and absolute, turning fear into a weapon as powerful as any gun. Every segment in this documentary follows strict, ethical standards designed to protect both viewers and those whose stories are told. Before presenting accounts of mass violence, a content warning appears on screen, alerting viewers to sensitive material and the absence of graphic footage. Survivor testimony is included only with informed consent, and all interviews with at-risk individuals, such as former operatives or massacre survivors, are reviewed by independent human rights advisors. Voices and faces are altered if requested, and no one is asked to display injuries or relive trauma for the camera. Factual claims draw exclusively from reputable sources, including investigative journalists such as Annabel Hernandez and Yoan Grillo, official court records, and human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch. On-screen citations accompany every key statistic, including casualty counts and leadership deaths, so viewers can verify information directly. Graphic execution videos and uncensored crime scene images are never shown. Instead, the documentary uses public records, blurred documents, and archival photos to illustrate events. Narco messages and banners are transcribed, not displayed, to avoid amplifying messages of terror. At the end of the film, links to non-governmental organizations that support migrants and victims' families are provided for those seeking help or wishing to learn more. These protocols ensure that the documentary informs without exploiting, prioritizing dignity, accuracy, and transparency at every step. On October 7, 2012, a convoy of Mexican Navy vehicles rolled into the dusty outskirts of Progreso, Coahuila. Inside a white pickup, Heriberto Lascano, known as Z3, was traveling with a bodyguard, unaware that military intelligence had tracked his movements for days. The firefight that followed was brief, but decisive. By the time the guns fell silent, Lascano was dead. Authorities quickly moved his body to a local funeral home, but within hours, it vanished. Conflicting stories spread. Some claimed cartel gunmen stormed the morgue. Others hinted at government complicity. Official records only confirmed the death, not the aftermath. For Los Zetas, the loss was irreplaceable. Lascano had been more than a commander. He was the architect of their military structure, the strategist behind their expansion, and the bridge between the original GAFE Corps and the new generation of recruits. The organization staggered, but violence did not stop. Less than a year later, on July 15, 2013, federal forces closed in on Miguel Trevino Morales, Z40, outside Nuevo Laredo. Armed with just 2 bodyguards and carrying $2 million in cash, Trevino was pulled from his vehicle without a shot fired. The arrest ended the reign of the last undisputed Zeta boss. In the span of 10 months, Los Zetas lost both the mind that built their empire and the hand that enforced its will. The immediate aftermath was chaos. With no clear line of succession, rival commanders and ambitious lieutenants began to carve out their own fiefdoms. The toppling of Lazcano and Trevino did not end the violence. It scattered violence, sowing confusion, and it set the stage for a wave of splinter groups that would redefine the cartel landscape. After the deaths of Heriberto Lazcano and Miguel Trevino Morales, Los Zetas fractured along old fault lines. No single commander could impose order across the sprawling network of armed cells, informants, and revenue streams. The original discipline, once enforced by ex-special forces, gave way to infighting and territorial grabs. Out of this chaos, new banners appeared. The old-school Zetas, claiming loyalty to the founding Gay-Fay principles, sought to restore the cartel's original code. Meanwhile, the Northeast Cartel, also called Cartel del Noreste, consolidated control over key trafficking corridors in Tamaulipas and Nuevo León, operating with much of the same brutality and military tactics that defined the Zetas at their peak. These splinters did not just battle each other. They faced pressure from outside forces that had learned from the Zetas playbook. The Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel both established their own paramilitary units, recruiting former soldiers and police to train new enforcers. The arms race escalated, with convoys of armored vehicles, coordinated assaults, encrypted communications, and intelligence networks becoming standard across major cartels. By the middle of the 2010s, the Zetas model had spread far beyond its origin, turning organized crime into a contest of military strategy as much as criminal enterprise. The result was a mosaic of violence. Instead of a single dominant group, dozens of factions clashed for control, sometimes block by block. The old-school Zetas and Cartel del Noreste maintained the Zeta name, but the unity that once made them so formidable was gone. In its place, a landscape where military expertise multiplied the scale and unpredictability of cartel conflict, and where every new splinter group carried a piece of the original Zetas' legacy into an uncertain future. Across Mexico, the tactics pioneered by Los Zetas remain woven into the daily operations of organized crime. Military-style command structures, encrypted communications, and intelligence networks have become standard for cartels from Tamaulipas to Jalisco. Even as original leaders fell and factions splintered, the playbook they wrote continues to shape the country's criminal landscape. Law enforcement now faces adversaries who plan raids, coordinate ambushes, and manage logistics with the discipline of special forces units. The roots of this transformation stretch back to state training programs that produced thousands of skilled soldiers and police officers, many of whom later defected. Recruitment pipelines ran unchecked for years, with little oversight to prevent elite operatives from crossing over to criminal groups. Vetting was often superficial. Background checks focused on paperwork, not the personal networks that enabled desertion and betrayal. Economic incentives only widened the gap. As long as the pay for risking one's life in uniform lagged behind what cartels could offer, the lure remained strong. International partners played a role as well. U.S. and Israeli advisors provided advanced training to Gay-Fay and police units, hoping to strengthen Mexico's fight against organized crime. But the same techniques, urban warfare, intelligence gathering, psychological operations became assets for the very organizations they were meant to combat. Each new round of training, each class of recruits, carried the risk of knowledge leaking into criminal hands. The persistence of Zeta-style tactics raises a question with no easy answer. How can a state defend itself when its own training becomes the enemy's greatest weapon? The cycle of militarization and defection shows no sign of ending. Without reform, without real investment in oversight, retention, and accountability, the line between protector and predator will remain dangerously thin. Today, cartel warfare in Mexico is defined by military expertise. It is an arms race that Los Zetas ignited, Their legacy endures as new groups copy their tactics, recruiting from the same ranks sworn to protect society. The line between soldier and criminal grows thinner with every defection. Until that cycle is broken, Mexico's future remains hostage to the ghosts it once trained. Share your thoughts below.